it's me, Aego here. Hi. Hello. The only one foundation. Today I brought with me some foundations which are also known as Rizabeth's foundation. They're MISSHA's Radiance Perfect Fit Foundation, and since I really like Rizabeth and have been wanting to review these foundations, I'm so excited to be able to review them today. So I'll start the review right away. Thin yet strong-fitting 48-hour cover-lasting foundation, MISSHA's Radiance Perfect Fit Foundation. They have been released in a total of 6 shades and comes in a shiny red container that feels clean and gives off an intensive vibe. No.19 Ivory, No.21P FAIR, No.21N Vanilla, No.22P Petal, No.22N Beige, No.23 SAND. I've applied all the shades on one side of my cheeks, and I think there are the shades from pink bases to neutral and warm bases that seem to fit the skin naturally and reliably. This foundation is set to last for 48 hours with a thin but strong fit and smooth skin correction with their own perfect fit technology. Also, with the seamless powder complex, the 2 types of powder is set to provide a light rolling feeling and comfortable use, while the 5 moist lock complex is set to keep it moisturized for a long time so that moisture won't dissipate easily. In addition, through the results of their human body application testing, is that this foundation is certified to provide a 48 hours of adhesion, brightness, and pigmentation coverage. As it has also undergone a skin irritation test as well, I personally thought that wouldn't it be good to be able to use on all types of skin with confidence. I've also tested to see how it smears. Although I think it smeared more than I expected they'd be, and when looking at the cheek side, it did not appear to have left any marks. No.19 Ivory is a neutral tone ivory color which I think will be good to use for people who normally uses the shade No.19. Since the color itself is not just bright but also provides a very natural expression, so upon applying it on my face, I found that it seems to be a color that provides a natural brightness to the face. No.21P FAIR is a color with pink base, so I think it'll be good to use for people who are cool toned. And since it's just a bit brighter than the shade No.19, I think it'll be good to use for people who uses the shade No.20.5, which is between the shade No.20 and 21. No.21N Vanilla is a neutral tone vanilla color, and it'll be great for people who normally use the shade No.21 with a neutral tone. Since it's not too warm or pinkish, I think it'll be a natural fit with one's skin tone. No.22P Petal is a color with a pink base, so I think it'll be great for people who are cool tones, but rather than saying that it's a shade No.22, I think it'll be great for people who uses the shade No.21.5, which is between the shade No.21 and 22. No.22N Beige has an apricot base, and when just looking at it, it seemed to suit my skin tone, but when I actually applied it, it seemed to be a bit brighter than I thought, so I think it'll be great to use for people who normally use the shade No.22. No.23 SAND is a warm tone color, and I think it'll be great for people who normally uses No.23 like me, but since it makes the face a bit bright, I think it'll be also great for No.22.5, which is between the shade No.22 and 23. It seems to suit my skin tone very well, right? When I just squeezed all the colors on the palette, I thought that the colors with pink base were too pinkish and the last shade No.23 SAND would have looked a bit dark, but when actually applied it, it looked much more natural, and I think this is a shade that is perfect with my skin tone. Now when looking at the areas where I have a lot of skin trouble, such as my forehead and cheeks, the coverage wasn't that high, but when I layered it on thinly, I was able to see a higher coverage on the areas that needed it. When comparing the skin tone of my neck and face, I found it to be a very natural tone that fits perfectly with my skin, which is not too bright or dark. And since this is a foundation, I tried using my fingers and a foundation brush to compare and take a look at the difference between how they would turn out. When applied with my fingers, it felt thinner and lighter than when applied with a brush, so it actually looked natural as if it was my skin, but on the other side where I applied it on with a brush, it seemed to have provided a higher coverage. Placing my phone against my cheek to see the difference of the smearing, I saw that there was less smearing on the side where I applied with my finger when I took a closer look, but in general, I think both sides have a similar amount of smearing. I personally don't like products getting on my fingers, so I always tend to use tools such as brushes or sponges, but when it comes to applying this foundation with my finger, I was so surprised because the adhesion was so great. The comfortable, thin application of the foundation felt really good as I applied it on my skin. Although it does not necessarily provide a strong coverage with one application, I was pleased to see that we were able to apply an additional layer on the areas that require stronger, higher coverage. I really liked all the shades since they were not too bright nor too dark, but the shades were a bit ambiguous, so they weren't exactly like number 19, number 20, number 21, number 22, number 23, but actually somewhere in between. For example, one color can be a bit darker than number 22, but a bit brighter than number 23, so it would actually to be great as a shade number 22.5. Due to this, it was a bit difficult for me to really talk about shade recommendations, but still it was great that the color themselves weren't off. And one more thing I like to tell you guys is that when I tried to remove these foundations after I tested them on my arm, they were actually a bit difficult to remove as they stained a bit. So I want to point out that it is very important that you thoroughly cleanse your skin after using these foundations. But now I can finally understand why this foundation was selected by Recipe. These foundations are really the foundations I like to recommend. So my review is still here. Thank you for watching my video today. Don't forget to subscribe, press the like buttons, and please leave some comments for me. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!